זה שיר פשוט, זה שיר קצר, אולי נשמע טיפה מוזר, אבל תדע, כי זו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך, והוא רואה, והוא שומע.
Well, welcome. Thanks for joining me. I'm Charlie Brown, and we're going to hop into this week's portion in Leviticus 25, 1 through 27. And we're actually closing out the book of Leviticus, which makes me sad because honestly, it is one of my favorite books. And I know for many of you, it's a struggle because it feels like a whole lot of do's and don'ts and a whole lot of rules. And who wants to walk in that? Well, I think that, or I pray that, if you have followed with me or if you've been hanging out with me through this book, that you're feeling new life in it. You're seeing that this is actually about giving us life and life more abundantly. And we're going to not stop until we get to the end, because this really is all about how to have abundant life that he has promised us. When we say that Yeshua was the word become flesh, remember, it was the Torah. That was the word that there was. He was the word that had been given was what we're reading about today. All these words, he was walking it out. He walked it out amongst us. He tabernacled. He tabernacled amongst us so that we could watch how to do it. Remember, this is how you do it. He's walking it out, saying, when this happens to you, this is what you do. When this happens, this is what you do. And so when we're reading this, if you could sit and ask, Father, where's Jesus in this? Where's Yeshua in this? And again, if you're listening today, I will interchangeably use the words Yeshua and Jesus. We know Yeshua is his Hebrew name, and most of us maybe met him as Jesus. And I love my friend Elisa. She says that Jesus introduced her to Yeshua. So it's always interesting. We'll have to have her on sometime to explain that to you. But I'm loving this section, and I'm actually interested in spending some more time in this year. I haven't spent the same amount of time in this portion that maybe I have in others. You guys know the first section, those first couple chapters of Leviticus, I love those. And keep praying for me, because that book, The Approaches, is still in process, and my goal is to have it finished this month, but we'll see. It'll be in an ebook form, something easy for you to get a hold of. It's probably looking more like the end of July, if we're all honest, okay? But I promise you it's going to get done. But really, I love this book. I love this book of Leviticus. This section that we're going to talk about, the Hebrew name for it is Behar, and then it's two sections together. We're actually going to read another section, Bechukatai. Okay, so you guys can say that several times. And we're Leviticus 25, 1 through 27. So we're going to finish it out. I don't know. I love it so much. Okay, so before I hop in real quick, I want to do a really quick promo for a couple things and something that I know that you're going to want to know about. So I'm going to talk to the ladies and the guys. Okay, so first I want to talk to my guys. If you are not involved yet, we have Grit with our guys. It's Guys Rooted in Torah, and it is a community, and it's on band. If you're interested in that, I'm going to put in the chat. Let me see if I can put it. I'm going to try private chat. Oops, turn on private chat. I'm going to put in Randy, my husband, his email, rootedcafe@gmail.com. Okay, so it's randy.therootedcafe@gmail.com. Why do you need that, guys? Randy.therootedcafe, @gmail.com. And the reason is, you want to be added to our band group. If you're watching and you know a guy who's it's Grit, Guys Rooted in Torah, this is such an amazing community of guys. And right now they're meeting once a month. They have this month, in 2 weeks, it's the third Sunday of the month. Rabbi Weiss will be teaching this month. They have a different guy each month teaching, and they're working on some really cool things. Also, guys, if you're interested in trying to find, is there another guy close to me who is kind of, trying to walk this out in their home, and I maybe would love to meet up with someone who's close to me, and maybe you don't have a fellowship, or you just would like someone outside of your fellowship. They just launched their Grit Finder map. Okay. And so it is gritfinder.net. Okay. I put those in the chat. It's gritfinder.net. And when you go on there, you just put your name and put your address, not your street, just your city and your email. So what happens is then you can look on this map. It just went live yesterday. You can look on this map and you're able to see who is there. We have a sister finder map as well. If you go to therootedcafe.com, there's a tab up there that says sister finder. So girls, you can go on there and do the same. And we have women, you'll see, ours has been going for over a year now. So you'll see there's women all over the world. And you can click, oh my gosh, they live by me. And you could email her and say, hey, let's meet for lunch or something. So that's kind of cool. I'm excited for what the guys are doing. They're working on some discipleship stuff. They're working on sharing testimonies. They're really, really excited about this community of guys working together. So I just want to encourage you guys, reach out to Randy if you want more information. They do have a private band community. It's like in lieu of Facebook, they have a private band. So you guys can go in there and chat and talk and safe. And there's not a bunch of weird advertisements popping up. So you guys do that. Okay. Next, new Gracie book is out. I'm so excited. I think I shared this last week. I can't remember, but this is out. So it is on Amazon. If you want to get this, really great for first early readers. It's number 2. I do go through the first 5 books of the Bible, help kids saying it, but then we go right into this book is about creation. I'll scoot to a creation picture. Yeah, I have them going through and teach them how do you say the books of the Bible in Hebrew. So if you're wanting to teach some fun stuff, but then we just jump into how the world was made and we do the days of creation. Again, simple reading. It's not going to take them into anything super deep, but I can just say it's fun, pretty pictures. I'm excited about it. Again, the first one is Gracie and the story of the 10 words. Gracie's down here right now asleep. So, hey, it's fun. Get one for your kids, get one for grandkids. It's fun. And then new book, It's Not My Weed to Pull, is coming out for me. It's a big launch for me, June 15th. It's Not My Weed to Pull. And this is really for ladies. It's really about the spirit of control and how we get controlling and how we can be over controlling. So reach out to me at charliebrown.com. And there's no E in my name. That's the little bald cartoon character. I just have an I. Reach out to me because if you want information about how to get a hold of the book, the pre-launch, if you want to help me be involved in that, if I have been doing workshops for this book, they have been phenomenal, coming in for a day to churches and congregations with women sharing about control. It's funny. We keep it funny and light, but it's also some stuff that just hits home and really hard. So anyways, I also would love to hear back from any of you right now. Do you have any big ahas so far as you're counting the Omer? This is important. We got to get talking about this. What's been going on for you as you've been counting down to Shavuot, as you've been counting out to this day of Pentecost? What are you expecting as you approach Shavuot? I want to hear from you. I want to hear back from you. Your input makes me feel like we know each other, and it really does matter. Even if you are brand new, it's your first time ever going through this. Would you tell me what you're struggling with or what's happening? You can write it in the comments wherever you're watching from YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching live right now. Would you share with me maybe where your struggles might be at this time of year with this section, whether it's in this portion? I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I'm just sharing with you my journey as I'm walking through these portions. So this week, as we're going through this, I want to share with you my journey through this week and my fresh perspective, or what I feel questions I might have that I don't have the answers to, that I would love to get your feedback, because he may have downloaded something for you. But I just thank you, Father, right now that you're here. I thank you, Father, that you're taking off anything that's clouding our judgment, our hearing, or our sight to know your truth, Father. I thank you that your anointing will teach us, and that's what's important. Father, I ask that you put a watch on my tongue as we step into your word today. Amen. Amen. Okay, so as we start, I just want to have everyone remember that this is a people that are being told things and they're still in the desert. So they're being told about some things. I believe they do have a point of reference, because a lot of this is not new to the ancient Near East. A lot of these concepts and principles are not new at all. They're just, he's using something they already know, And then he's showing him the proper way that it is to be done to a good and loving king, how he is. I'm going to have to get a Kleenex, just a sec. I know better, right? Okay, so they haven't arrived in the promised land yet. So they're being told, I need you to keep a Sabbath. We're talking about a Sabbath again, not just a Sabbath day, but I want you to keep a Sabbath of years and then a Sabbath of the Sabbath of years, right? So it's a seven and a 7 years and then a 7 times 7 years. So it's a lot going on, a lot of it. What I believe this is a time that he's reinforcing the fact that he's instilling a holiness and a purpose to our work years and our work days. We go through the Sabbath multiple times, constantly. Keep the Sabbath, keep the Sabbath. You've heard it through this whole book. You've heard it multiple times in Deuteronomy. Not Deuteronomy, but Exodus. You're not going to stop hearing this. It's that important. It was created for us, but it's about a lot of things. And so I would love to hear from you. What do you feel like the big thing for you is, as far as having not just the purpose of your work days, having a holiness instilled and a purpose, but also instilling your work years. And then this Jubilee, this Yovel, right? This is like, okay, this is a different concept for us, right? We're not used to that. Wouldn't our land look different? Can you even imagine if we actually let our land rest? Obviously, I have a tongue tie today. Our land rest every 7 years. How do you think that would look different? What would look different? I hope you're all yelling at the screen. What would look different? I know my husband works a lot in some with groups of people all over the world in sustainability and ways to actually reduce carbon in the environment. He's working with some people in areas. One of the things, can you just imagine if we let our land rest? I mean, what is one of the biggest complaints you hear about our food? You hear about our food is that it's depleted, that we don't have the vitamins. Been talking to too many English people. We don't have any vitamins in the land, in our food, and we have to take supplementation because the land is depleted. It's not even it's not, so many things are missing out of it, right? So many minerals as well. I read something a couple days ago about a dandelion, and how a dandelion, which obviously is something that I love, and it represents some things happening in my life at this time. But the yellow ones especially, first of all, it's one of the first things that pop up to announce spring. But the thing that hit me more importantly than all that is that it grows in dirt that's depleted in things, whether it's too acidic, or it's too, whatever's happening with the thing. If it's hard and compacted, that dandelion will grow there, and the death of it is actually what helps restore, and it will actually do repair the ground around it. And once the ground is healed, it will actually go away. It won't grow back again. But if you pull it, you're going to get 2 or 3 more, because it's going to continue up until that land is healed. That's what's happening. Of course, there's been things put into play for our land. Can you imagine if you let your land sit for 7 years, if you're a farmer? I don't think we can comprehend what that looks like. The only thing I can say is if you own your own business, or if you work, can you imagine if you just took a whole year off every 7 years? You just took that 7th year off and you don't work. There's no provision. And what happens is, we see God tells us that in the 6th year that he's going to give them extra, so that it'll not just take care of that 7th year that you're off, but it's going to take care of the 2 after, while you're getting things back going again. Because the next year you're having to get your crop back, and there's a process that 6th year isn't just a double portion, it's actually a triple portion to help you through three years, and you really only have a good 3 years of a crop. So what if that happened at work, that you took that year off? What would that look like? I feel like sometimes we need to sit in that, because we kind of skim through this like it's, oh yeah, then there's 7 years off, and then but what if you were called to do that, to take that time off? What would that mean to you? There's no sowing, there's no pruning, there's no harvesting, there's no going. I mean, what if what if that was the case? Now we know this is about the land, but think about the trust that would be required of the farmer to not do anything for one solid year to the land. I mean, especially the first time around, right? Maybe even the second time around until it starts to become, okay, we get this, okay, I'm good with this. I feel comfortable. I've developed trust with you, God. I've developed trust. Not that parting the Red Sea or all the other stuff, but I'm going to develop trust as you're doing this. What would that look like? That increase is going to be enough, that I'm going to trust that increase is going to be enough to take me through what I need. And not just what I need. He says, everyone you're responsible for. Everyone you're responsible for. So your slaves, your cows, your kids, everybody. Now I am your provider. What a beautiful way to not only tend this earth that we are in charge of, that we don't do very well. Most of us can't even pick up our own trash. Sadly, we don't even do that. But what if we actually let that land? What if not just only that, it's a beautiful way of this restoration of our planet, but what if in doing that too, it's also teaching us about provision, teaching us about who is our ultimate provider, teaching us that none of this belongs to us and we don't get greedy. It was a something put into play for us to keep us from being so tempted that wanting more and more and more and more and getting greedy that it was a pressure valve release, or it was a speed bump. There we go. That's what I want. I was going to say undulation. I was trying to think of that word. It's an undulation to make us slow down and realize that we're not always wanting more and more and more and more and more and more and more. We'd have to slow down and realize that every 7 years, what's going on, right? And then that Jubilee year, that 50th year, wow, that's one other time, right? Okay. So I was thinking about those 3 years. There is actually 3 good years that they get a harvest out of it. The rest of the time it's either resting or it's preparing. So there's these 3 years, and I just want, I went down a little nerd trail and just added some stuff, but think about the number 3 in the Hebrew. It's kind of another word for completeness. It's completeness, not like the 7, but 3 is like, it's a kind of a completeness, but it's also the letter Gimel. And think about that man loaded down, that camel that's loaded down with the riches, leaving the house. As you go through the alphabet, you can see, the father who leaves the house. It's a beautiful story of Yeshua, who leaves the house loaded down with gifts, right, to go through the door. It's a beautiful story if you go through the alphabet. But this is this camel, this loaded down with gifts, with riches. And that's what those 3 years are, just a time that tons of what's being poured in. And we're going to see at the end, what is the consequence? There's a consequence for not walking in his commandments. It's that during that time, we're going to really struggle. It's going to be a struggle. The land is going to be, it might be producing, but the labor is going to be in vain. We're going to build the house, but it's without his blessing. And so the labor is in vain. So anyways, I looked at chapter 25, verse 24, and it says that he says that you are to provide the redemption for the land. And what a responsibility for us. And I'm hearing garden talk, and I might bring that up again here in a little while, but you hear garden talk. You're to bring redemption for the land. And wasn't that what we were commanded to do? That's what the Great Commission, the job we were given initially in the garden, was to tend it and to keep it. And to bring and this is a way of giving us the ability to start stepping back into that walk with him. We're going to hear it a little bit later about him walking with us. But stepping back into the opportunity to approach him, to be with him. We already talked about approaches and being able to see him and be with him and hear him. And now he's giving us the opportunity to tend the land, the opportunity for us to bring redemption back to the land. And we're going to hear that terminology of the kinsman redeemer. Tell me, where are some areas that you remember hearing about a kinsman redeemer? What does that mean to you? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Yell it out or type it right now. I want to see if you're watching. Great. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing some chats coming from some different areas. If you're watching on YouTube, still chat to me. Pretend like we're live, okay? What who is this kinsman redeemer? We've heard it, first of all, usually with Boaz and Ruth, right? We hear this whole story of Boaz being Ruth's kinsman redeemer. What a beautiful story. What a beautiful story. Nowhere in there, I mean, what a beautiful story that here's this woman who is who is an outsider, who is an outcast really, and she comes in and she's grafted in and and now part of the great lineage of our Messiah. And there is a kinsman redeemer who is willing to step in and pay the price to redeem her land, to redeem the seed. It's a beautiful redemption story. And we see, obviously, we know Yeshua, right? We see Yeshua all over this. If we look through all these things, we can see where he stepped in and he is our kinsman redeemer. If I wrote down a note that one of the things about a kinsman redeemer is if you sold something, a lot of us know kinsman redeemer. We're thinking of Yeshua dying for us, and he's redeemed our soul. He's redeemed our lives. But if we've sold something, a kinsman redeemer could actually come in and buy it back for you. So, for example, we see in the story of Ruth, we know that Naomi's husband had sold the land, and so this kinsman redeemer could come in and actually redeem it and buy it back. And I have sold so much. I've sold so many things. I wrote a note to myself at first saying I've sold myself in so many ways. I thought, well, that's going to come across wrong. But I hope you know what I mean. Like I've sold I've been fragmented where I've given things away or sold things away out of desperation. Like, oh, I need to do this. So I've sold myself short in a lot of things. But he's paid the price and he bought it all back for me. His gifts are without repentance. What he's given away, he redeems and brings it back to you. We'll read, if then he'll bring it back. He'll restore what the cankerworm has stolen from you. I am blessed and privileged to have Gail Heaton as a friend, but also she's an instructor in the Rooted Cafe. Recently, you will have to go look on Amazon her book Through Ancient Eyes. She writes for us the portion an ancient Near East perspective. It's beautiful. It's not too hard. For those of you that are tiptoeing into that realm, what a great way for you to come into the Rooted Cafe to have access to those teachings, because she not only does the Torah portion, but she also does the prophets, the Haftarah. So she's gone through it. What does this really mean? And how do we need to kind of have an ancient Near East perspective? What was happening during that time to help me understand this a little better? And I took a little snippet that I want to read to you from one of her teachings on the portion for us for this section. And it says, the 7th and the 50th year. Unlike the kings of the ancient Near East, earthly kings never announced ahead of time when they would cancel debts and release persons. See, these 7th and 50 years were not different than a lot of the things that were happening. The concept of having them come in and forgive debts and do things, that was not uncommon. Again, God is talking to them in a language they understand, with principles they would understand. It's not super blown out. They don't understand what he's even talking about. They would have known about kings coming through the land and forgiving debts and taking care of things. This is different, though. This is different. Here's how. They never would announce ahead of time that they were coming. Let me move this so I can read it better. They wouldn't announce ahead of time that they were coming. And they wouldn't announce ahead of time that they're going to be releasing people. The people never knew what was going to happen. There was no guarantee. It would be done when a new king sometimes arose to power. When a new king would arise to power, that they could sometimes maybe have an expectation, but it wasn't for sure. Though it was assumed a good king would do it. It was assumed that every once in a while a good king would come through and cancel debts. We see the parable, remember, of when the king lent the money and he couldn't pay it back, and so he delivered him and he said, yes, you can go. And then that's this parsha played out. That parable is this parsha. Do you guys see it? Somebody put the references in the chat. That's that parable. When the king forgives the slave, and then the slave goes back and doesn't forgive his slave. And then what happens? Well, we're going to see that's what happens in this section. If you do these things, then this is what's going to happen to you. Those sins were going to come back on you. That's 7 times. So that's what he ended up doing. That's that parsha right here, right now. That's that parable. They're the same. See, our king, even though it would be assumed that a good king would do those things, see, our king, he can guarantee that he will make good on his promise. Why? Because we're going to learn as we go through this, he owns everything. He owns everything. So it's our job to keep remembering that he owns everything. He's put into play the ability for us to be reminded with those undulations every 7 years, every 50 years, every 7 days, right? That he owns everything. He is our provider, and he is a good king. And when we trust him with 6, he'll bless us in the 7th. Okay. So Gail wrote a question. She said, our question is, do I act like I believe this? And I want to pose that question to you. Do you act like you believe this? Does your life act like you believe that this doesn't belong to you and that he's your redeemer in your life? Or are you still living back in the past, maybe old debts that you haven't allowed him, you're holding on to them like you still have to pay them, or pay the price for things, and he's saying, I've already paid the price for that. He's already redeemed you and set you free from that. So if we just sit in these chapters, I think you can see the love all through these chapters. I know, isn't that crazy? It's Leviticus. This is also Isaiah 61 in action. He's setting captives free, right? Go back and read Isaiah 61 and know that it's kind of commentary on this part of Leviticus. We can see the process of redemption. None of us want to talk about money. No one wants to say it. Everyone wants to keep it super private, but it is a way of life. And as we go through this, we're going to see one of the things that we have to know about is if we talk about, it says in here, if a brother is becoming poor. Well, it's not if he is poor. This is in this section, the way the verb is in Hebrew is if he is becoming poor. Like you're going to see it and you notice it. Not just that you see it, but that if something's not fixed, they're going to be in ruin. The problem is we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We don't tell anybody. I'm struggling. We wait until it's at the very end and we're a hot mess and we're like we're like in food lines. We don't have this concept set up in our congregations, in our families. Sadly, we don't walk this out well, or if at all. But if we walked this out really well, what would happen is as you would be sharing that I'm struggling, my business is struggling, everyone would come in and they would either buy from you because they're trying to help you, because as you see them be coming into room, you're supposed to support, not just talk about it. You're actually supposed to step in and actually strengthen your brother, strengthen your sister as you see them, and not charge them interest and not try to make a profit off of that. That's evil. That's not a good heart. Instead, everyone, let's gather around them and let's buy from them. I used to struggle with even saying, oh my gosh, look, I have new books coming out. I'm super excited. But can I just say, it's a way that my family makes a living. So thank you for those of you who do buy those. And I shouldn't be embarrassed to say that, but our society tells us that we should. I love that those of you who come in and understand the Rooted Cafe is a paid membership. Our first month, we love having you come in. We give you half off. And then it's $19.95 a month or 90 something. It's under $20 a month. Why? Because there's a platform that has to be paid. We have to pay some people to do certain things that we don't have the ability to do. We have to feed our families. I mean, you can do the math when you see how many people we have where no one's making a bunch of money. But when you step in and you're saying, okay, I want to help support this and I want to come in and pay, what you're doing is you're helping. That's how we help one another. And what we're doing when we're trading with one another, when we're paying for things, is that we're not giving the bread of shame to someone. We're allowing them to have dignity and work for something. We see we'll work for food signs that are up. Sadly, that has been taken wrong because that is actually a biblical concept. You should work for what you eat. If you don't work, you shouldn't eat because you're causing someone to eat. You're just giving money away. It's called, you're giving them the bread of shame. You're not allowing them the dignity of working for their food. Now, you're not to exploit them. You're not supposed to treat them horribly, but you're to give them the opportunity to work for their food. So if you need something, find another believer to buy from so that you then help them have the dignity of providing for their family, and you're supporting them so that they thrive. A lot of us don't want to tell anyone that, like, oh yeah, we're struggling financially, because we're looking at Instagram or Facebook and we're seeing stories of all these people going on these great trips, and they have cars and they have houses. So never do we want to reach out to our friends or family and say, hey, you know what? My business is starting to decline. Can I ask all of you to help? And could you guys start buying from me? Like, any of you guys who maybe get your lawn done. I have a lawn business. We have some openings. Would you do that? Consider that as you shop, as you do things. Is there a way that you can support your brother or your sister to keep them in walking in dignity, to be able to provide for their family? One of the things I found was interesting was the if a house was in a walled city, they had a year to redeem it. This is just random, okay? They have a year to redeem it. I think it's interesting. I'd love to hear some of you tell me what is your comments about this? What do you hear know about this? Because the thing is, this is the one place that they only have 1 year to redeem it, and then if they don't, it's done. Like, they lose the house. Everywhere else, it has to be given back. There's a redemption process. It's longer. It's up to the 7 years, and then your debts are released. But with this house, if it's within the walls, um, it's not released at the Jubilee year. Why? Does anyone know why? Because I, for some reason, that stuck out to me today when I was rereading, and I thought that's somewhere I want to go back into. Who lived in the wall? Who lived in the wall? The poor lived in the walls. So why is it in the walled cities? Why would it be that of all the people, you would think they would have more time instead of less? So why is it that they had 1 year, and then they were done? I don't know. Do you guys know? I'd be really curious, because only those houses that are not in the walls were released. So anyways, I think God right here is really reinforcing to all of us. I realized it's not mine. None of it is mine. And I've shared with you that he's really driving home with me about being a good steward of everything. It's not mine. Nothing's mine, not even my body. Nothing is mine. My time is not my own. Nothing is mine. It's his. That I'm a sojourner. And it's interesting that one of the first words that you hear little kids saying is mine. Can I have that? No, mine. Can I play with that? Mine. That's mine. It's kind of like in us, right? That we wanted. So he loves us so much. Can we see that as a loving parent as we read through the rest of this, or as we read the processes that are put in place here? It's a process for us to overcome that temptation. He won't give us more temptation than we can handle. So the way out that he's giving us is the Jubilee years, is the way of redeeming things, is a way of working for things, is a way of understanding it's not mine. Are you taking really good care of the things that he's loaned you? Because everything you have is on loan. He can give it and he can take it, right? And this requires opening up our hands and saying, I'm going to return to you, Father, what you've given me. Psalms 24:1 reminds us, the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell in it. They're all his. We don't live most of us listening live in some type of a democratic world, society. I know I have listeners all around the world, but it's a very democratic idea, right? The democratic idea is mine. I deserve it. I've worked for it. It's mine. It's my right. How about that? It's my right. I have a right to this. We aren't understanding that monarchy. Most of us don't. I love watching The Queen, the show The Queen, because it gets me in that mind of what is the monarchy and what does that look like to have someone reigning over a people and having territories and owning things and being able to walk in and saying, I forgive you of this and this, and everything belonging to the sovereign. We don't understand that. It's mine. I worked for it. That's American dream. I want to present to you. Can you come out like this? Can we come out like this and say it's not mine? I love the words that we're going to see here. He says, we're going to see coming into this, he says, you will dwell securely. The reason is because it could be taken away. There's a caution for exile, not out of hate or anger. And can I present that to you? Because many of us have learned that this is where this mean, ugly God is saying, I'm going to hate you. I'm going to look down on you. I'm going to do these things. Can I present to you today? This is the most loving Father speaking to his children right now. He's saying he loves them so much. He loves us so much that he will give us a way out. He will not give us more temptation than we can handle, but he will give us always a way out. Please stop. It's my most pet peeve is people who quote that. He won't give you more than you can handle. That is not what that verse says. I will say it till the cows come home. He is always going to give a way out. And right now, this is such a huge temptation. Our greed, our wanting to have it all, the temptation to be greedy, the temptation to think it's ours, and to be possessive. He loves us so much that he's saying, if you do this, we're going to see he's going to open up some other ways that will guide us back in. Okay, so we're going to see real quick 25:35. He says, if your brother becomes poor, again, going back to if he is becoming poor. This is an intimate word, by the way. It wasn't just, hey, if the guy, hey, if this fellow, this is like a brother. This is someone you're in community with becomes poor, or it's the process of becoming poor. Again, I want to remind you, he says you want to uphold them. And more importantly, he says you're to regard it. The way that this is expressed in Hebrew is you're to regard it as if it's happening to you. And I read a thing. Rashi says, one of the sages says that the picture he gave made me giggle. But he says, like, if a donkey is loaded up, right, and if that load starts to fall off, one guy can kind of grab the load and readjust the load, right? So you can come in and help your neighbor. Oh wait, I'll come run around and help him lift that up. But if that falls all the way off and it takes the donkey down with it, it'll take 5 men to get that donkey back up. So the key is that we are to be so in tune with one another. If we see one of our brothers or sisters starting to fall, that we start to help them get back up. We start to help them adjust the load, right? We're supposed to bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the Torah, the law of Yeshua. That's how we bear one another's burdens. If I'm seeing you struggling, and then maybe it's not just financially, but if I'm seeing you struggle in something, that before you totally fall over going, well, sucks to be you. Meh. No, because once that happens, it's going to take 5 times as hard to get you back up. But if we can help work on it together when you're starting to fall, when I encourage you to not just be the person ready to help, but can you be the person who will ask for help before it's too late? Not too late, before it's way harder than it needs to be vulnerable. Oh, I know it's hard because people could use it to hurt you. They could. Ask anyway. I want to tell you guys this is not a section about we're talking about slaves. Again, we're talking about indentured servants. It would be like employees. Okay, it's totally different. It's just for a time. It's to pay off a debt. It's in lieu of prison a lot of times. It's a welfare system that brings dignity, that doesn't bring shame of not being able to pay your bills, right? And when they would take on these indentured service, you'll see that the owner or the landowner or the boss is also in charge of the upkeep of that man's whole family. He doesn't get to keep them, but he's treating these people with dignity. So not only is this man cared for, but his entire family is cared for while he is helping him without shaming him. I think there's some people who live in shame, and it's so normal for them that they don't even know. So that's why it's easier for them to get a hand. They don't appreciate it, I'll say. Have you ever tried to help someone up and they just wanted a hand out and they got maybe offended? I've had that happen where I've tried to help someone out by like, well, how about we try, this or a job? Hey, would you be willing to work for food? Okay, I have offered in the past those them work, who, someone who's had that sign, and they didn't want to work. They truly just wanted the hand out. And here he's saying, I want you to give the hand up and show them how to walk this out. And can we, what does this look like? And here's part of homework for you. What does this look like for you in your day-to-day life? What does this look like now for you? The indentured servant thing. How do we help one another? How do we bear one another's burdens and walk this out? Giving someone the ability to, and supporting them. Sometimes it's emotionally. When they can't support themselves, we might have to step in and help in those areas. I would love to hear from you. Like, where do you think this is actually practical, even not just in money and helping financially, which I believe this is a very practical way, again, of doing this. But what are some ways that you have seen this maybe play in other areas of your life? Yeah, we want to help people get on their feet. Why? So then they can support themselves. We even talk about bringing people, it says bringing people into your homes. You can even bring them into your house until they can get on their feet and support themselves, not to cripple them, not to, it's okay for you to set boundaries and to say, until this time, we're going to help you do this. And this is what is going to happen. Why? Because a lot of times when someone is struggling in that area, they need the boundaries to be able to move forward. Otherwise they'll get stuck in where they're at. And that's not your job. Your job is to provide a way out for them, a way up for them to get back on their feet. All right. I love again that a man or a woman, they've sold themselves, but they can be redeemed. All the things I've sold out to, all of it required his redemption. All of it that you maybe feel like it you've sold out to, or that you have sold yourself to other things and where you've fallen short, all those things, we've all fallen short, all of us. The word says that, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We've all missed the mark. We've all sold out to things. We're all in the need of a kinsman redeemer. We need him every single day. There's days that I sell out to. I'm supposed to be on this track, and my flesh, because I've sold out to a wrong choice of food, now I'm tired. Now I can't do what I need to do. I'm just walking in my life right now. I've sold out to that. My Redeemer still lives. My Redeemer can still come in and redeem that choice and walk me through it. Yeah, you know what? You're going to see as we're going to finish out here, there are going to be consequences. Yeah. He's also tells us that not to make out, we're going to close out this section of Behar, not to make idols that you bow down to. This is a time when you can ask, Father, have I made, it doesn't say you can't make statues in your yard. Like people have statues of animals or something, pray about that because you may have a different conviction. I'll leave that there. But what I read is that don't make things that you bow down to. That's what the verse says to me. It says, don't, the exact word verbiage is, you're not to make idols for yourself, nor raise up an engraved images or standing stone or places any carved stone in your land to bow down to. So I know that some of you have some different convictions on that, and I respect that. It's between the two of you. So I honor you for that. And then again, he leaves us, but keep the Sabbath holy. Have reverence for my sanctuary. And that's how he ends out that. And then we hop into the next section in 26:3. And he says, starts the if then. If you, then I. If you yalak, if you walk in my statutes. Do you hear? I want to know do you hear the Psalms as you're reading through this? Because I sure did. I heard Psalms I feel like I should just be writing a bunch of Psalms. I want a bunch of Psalms through the whole thing as I saw them, because he says, I can just see, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. he's saying, if you walk, you're not going to be afraid. If you walk, all these things aren't going to happen. It was like David was reiterating this section right here in a song he played. He says, if you keep my instructions, things are going to go really well for you. It's kind of like when your kids are living at home. If they keep your instructions, if they abide by the rules, guess what's going to happen? When you flip the light switch on, you're not going to have to pay for it. It'll just come on magically. The water will come out of the faucets. Your clothes will magically be clean. Magically, there will be food in the refrigerator. Magically, the bills are going to get paid for you. Why? Because you're honoring the rules of this house. Things will go well for you. Not only will you just have the basic needs, right? But they're going to go really well for you. You're not just going to have what you need, but you actually might even get some of the things you want. And you might even get things you hadn't dreamed of, but you realized, wow, that was a deep desire of my heart. And I didn't even know how to verbalize it. And he gave me that. Verse 12, he says, I will walk among you. Again, we have garden talk. He says, I'm going to walk amongst you. It will be as if the king is walking amongst you. Isn't that beautiful garden talk? He's saying, if you will keep these commandments, it will be as if I'm walking with you. You know what? I'm thinking right now that something that has changed in my life, I can, and I'm, if I have time here, we'll share, but there's times when I have walked away and I wasn't walking out statutes. I wasn't walking out, not rules or things. Oh, I have to do this. I wasn't going to die. But what I noticed, if I didn't see certain commandments, what I noticed, even keeping Shabbat, what I noticed is that my time wasn't prosperous. My body wasn't prosperous. There's things there was a consequence to that made me want it so badly because I just didn't feel right. Things didn't go well, right? I want you to see that as we continue to go through this. Okay. So this is one of my favorite verses. Verse 13 is, he says that he brought us out of Egypt and he has broken the bars of our yoke and he's made us walk upright. So I say that to me, he has brought me out of Egypt. He has brought me out of the miry clay, right? He has broken the bars of my yoke. His yoke is not heavy. He broke the bars of my yoke and he has made me walk upright. Can I say right now, I've been going through physical therapy I've TMJ. It's been horrible. And my doctor recommended, have you tried physical therapy? And I'm like, no, that doesn't even make sense to me. My dentist has tried things. We've tried other mouth guards. We do all the things. That's really attractive. Talking made it worse. Oh my gosh. Started physical therapy, and guess what? They started working on my posture. Because when we're not upright, there's pains. Have you had not walked upright and then your low back hurts and then your hip hurts and then maybe your knees hurt because your weight isn't distributed properly? So for me, what happens is, if you're sitting all day, you start to slump a little bit and then you're looking up at your keyboard and you do this thing right here. So you guys see how this is not really attractive, right? For those of you listening, it doesn't look cute. But so what happens like that, there's all these get short, they get tense. But as you start working these out to hold up and to stand upright and to walk upright, you're not going to have pain in other areas. You're not out of balance. And guess what? I love that verse. Satan's like a roaring lion. It says he's looking for things that are stay well balanced, because Satan is like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. He's looking for you to get out of balance. And we forget that Yeshua he makes me walk upright. He makes me walk well balanced. I'm not unstable and double-minded because I'm well balanced. Because when I get out of balance and when I start not walking in the ways that he's called me to, and I'm not receiving the redemption that he's given for me, I feel like I'm under a yoke. Then all of a sudden I start feeling yucky. He's going to make me start having pain. It's kind of so that I straighten up. Like your wash machine, if it gets out of balance, it starts making that crazy noise. What do? You go in and you adjust the load to balance it out again, and then it can finish out. This is really personal. It's really huge because the next section starts saying, but if you don't, if you break my mitzvah and your soul abhors these ordinances, it's not just like, oh, I messed up, or oh, but it means like you just are like, I'm not doing that. It's like when that just gets in your deep on who you are and you're just rebellious. Okay. He says he's going to appoint, my version said terror over you. That root terror that was in there, the root of that is Bahal, a bait, a hay, and a lamed. The Gesenius translated that as tremble, that he will appoint a tremble. Think about my dog when it's afraid, she trembled. Gracie trembles. She's going through this weird thing where she gets scared of something now. She's trembling when she hears a loud noise. Terror, right? A fear. But if you look at those words in Hebrew, look, what is that picture? There's a bigger picture here, isn't there, right? That root, that word bahal, that bait, that hay, and that lamed. And I want you to think of the contronym, because we're not talking about if you do it well, these great things. I think you should take those things and side by side the words for the good. If you do these things, this is going to happen good. If you don't, this is going to happen. I bet you're going to see their contronyms of I didn't do that, but you're going to see these contronyms. But the contronym of this word, bahal, we see bait, a house. We see the hey, that revelation, the lamed, the correction. We can see that as being a great thing, the safety and the beautiful revelation and the loving care of that lamed, that shepherd's hook that guides. We see the 23rd Psalm that he's lovingly guiding you through. Or if you're rebellious, because he loves you so much, even in your sin, he died for you. Because he loves you so much, he's going to reel you in. Look at a good shepherd. He's going to wall you off, that house, that revelation, that instruction. He's going to pull you in to protect you. And sometimes you're put on restriction. Why do you put your children on restriction? So they learn a lesson, so they get revelation of what they did wrong, so they desire the freedom of walking in obedience. He says, I'm going to appoint some correction on you, because that's what a good shepherd does. One of the things he says is, I'm going to bring a wasting disease. The word is like emaciated, and the root of that word, it's H7829. And if you go to the root of that, it's sheen, a het, and a pay. Okay, so sheen, we have that fire. The het could be life, and the pay sophit is the ultimate mouth speech. Okay, which we always think if it's a sophit, we think Yeshua, the ultimate of anything, the ultimate son. Okay, the contronym of this beautiful fire and life and speech and the divine speech from the Father, that would be the positive, right? But he says, if you walk away from me, you're going to be emaciated. I'm going to cause a fire to burn things. It's going to be chaotic, and I'm going to burn away to chaos. And what you're going to hear is not going to be life-giving to you. And it's not going to be food, it's not going to be food for your soul. Like the word is food, it's nourishment, it's that manna, it's this amazing. But when you don't, and you walk away and you decide, I don't want anything to do with that, and you decide, I don't want anything to do with these mitzvah, I don't want to do any of this mitzvahs, I don't want to do any of this. Okay, fine. But what's going to happen is he's going to make you want it so bad because you get emaciated. There's no nourishment in anything around you. It's chaotic. He says, fever will dim your eyes and your soul will pine away. You're so in vain. He's going to bring the sword that will execute judgment. Do you guys see the picture of the return of Messiah here? With that judgment sword. A lot of this is a picture of a foretelling of the future. He's going to cause us to be so hungry for him, and he will come in and bring judgment because there's love in that. He says, you're going to be so busy. You're going to be so busy threshing your floor that you're going to thresh here, and your harvest is ready. And you got to stop and you got to go do. There's going to be no rest because you're saying, I'm not going to let the land rest. Have you guys looking? You're not going to take the day off to rest because you're Shabbat. So what happens is you're busy all the time. You're so one thing leads into the next, leads into the next, leads into the next, and you're just bleh. That's what's going to happen. You're going to eat and you won't be satisfied. Can I just say I can relate to that? I've had some nights where I've stressed out and where I haven't been spending time with him, and then all of a sudden I start eating, and because I think that's what's going to fill me up. So I start eating food out of my emotional eating, and I'll start eating and I'm not satisfied. Nothing is making it okay. Why? Because he wants us to turn back. It's like seeing that big sign that's saying danger, danger, danger. So what is he going to do? It says, danger, danger. There's rocks, there's glass, there's a cliff. Turn your car around. Stay on the road. The road's nice. The road is paved. There might be a pothole here and there. So I'm going to tell you where it is. Careful turns ahead. But there's signs. It's not. But here, no, don't go. And what we do is we blast through it. We're like, no, we don't turn back. We're going to do it on my own. Then what happens? We get flat tires. He's telling you what's going to happen if you go the wrong way. But he says in verse 27, but if you still won't shamar, if you still aren't going to listen, if you still aren't going to do these things, these punishments are going to happen. He talks about, again, we just talked about a couple, but he's like, you're going to have swelling, skin lesions, burning fever, this frustrated longing. You're never satisfied. Sowing seeds that produce crops for other people, being struck down before your enemy, being subjugated and fleeing, and no one pursues you. I feel like there's a lot in there. Like I've thought of times when I left maybe a congregation or had a disagreement or with something, and the friend didn't pursue me. The people didn't pursue me. That's a ucky feeling. That's not a good feeling. But as I was reading this, I want to share with you, and we're going to kind of close out with this, is remember this. A righteous man or woman falls how many times? Can I hear you? I think you're all yelling at me, right? A righteous man or woman falls 7 times, but he or she gets up. So get up. Have you fallen? Get up. Have you walked away? Come back. Redemption is here. It's close. It's right now. Your Redeemer paid the price. You know, when I turned from walking in his commandments, I worked a lot. And I noticed that other people were receiving the benefit, or I worked so hard in a business and then ended up losing it to another person who just stepped in and was able to take it over. I worked my tail off. It wasn't because I was lazy, but then when I turned back, when I started honoring the Sabbath, when I started honoring the things of my Father was telling me to do, all of a sudden there's still work. There was peace though, and everything I did, there was still lessons to be learned, but we are able now to enjoy the fruits of our labor. We see our marriage, the labor of our marriage, financially, so many things. You know, the word tells us, but if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all our unrighteousness. He tells us here, but if you confess for you, your land, your fathers, and if your heart is humbled, and it's because your heart was uncircumcised, but it becomes humbled. He says, then I'll remember. We see 1 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, what is he going to do? Then I will hear from heaven and I will heal their land. Do you see it? Okay, I have to go, but I want to leave this with you guys, and I'm going to go before the man. It gives a value, the divine appraisals of men and women. It says that a man could be sold for 50 shekels of silver and a woman for 30 shekels of silver. I thought it was interesting that Yeshua was sold for 30 shekels of silver. 30 shekels. He was sold. A statement was being made there. He wasn't sold for a man's price. He was sold for the price of a woman. That's what they sold him for. What does that mean? I'm curious. I want to hear what you guys think from that. But Yeshua was sold for the value, not of what was placed on a man of his age, but of what was placed on for a woman of his age. I want to say today to you, Chazak, Chazak, V'nik Haziek. Did I say that right? Maybe. Be strong, and may we all be strengthened together. I can't wait to see you next week as we go into a new book. This is my new favorite. Numbers used to be my favorite, but okay, I'll go now. Mwah! Be blessed. Jump into your portion this week.
זה שיר פשוט, זה שיר קצר, אולי נשמע טיפה מוזר, אבל תדע, כי זו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך, והוא רואה, והוא שומע, ואכפת לו מכל דבר קטן. תדע לך, שזו עובדה,
richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can